Been involved in reining over a considerable period of time, shown a personal passion for the sport that exceeds monetary gain, and demonstrated the desire and ability to improve the sportsmanship and congeniality of reining. Now, given those criteria, this award each year goes to a very special reiner, and this year is no exception. Tim Katona of Belleville, Michigan got an early taste of reining at state fairs where he watched the reining classes with awe. After high school, Tim worked for Shorty Russell in Texas, where he learned the basics of training halter, cutting, reining, and roping horses. But the reiners had a special hold on him. He attended his first NRHA competition at Butch Gardill's farm in Pennsylvania, placed fourth in the limited open, and was hooked. In the mid-'80s, Tim attended the first NRHA board meeting to consider a new judging system, and even held the inaugural judges clinic at his Michigan farm, where he was one of the first 4 to pass the new test. It was also Tim Katona who first approached the NRHA board with the idea of new rules to allow youth riders, which led to the first approved youth classes in 1986. Tim continues to train and coach champion horses and riders and has earned more than $148,000 in the NRHA. He and his wife Cindy still run a breeding, training, and non-pro program at their farm where they say it rains 365 days a year. For his loyal service to the sport of reining and his spirit of innovation, we honor Tim Katona with the Dale Wilkinson Lifetime Achievement Award. If you will, please welcome to the stage to make our first, to welcome our first honoree, make this presentation for us tonight. This is a member of our Hall of Fame and also a former president of the foundation, Mr. Frank Costantini.
Thank you, Jennifer. I brought the microphone already. Jennifer's been here, she thought, for a very long time, something like 12 or 13 years. You know, Tim and I weren't around then. We've only been here for like 5 or 6, Tim, something like that. Hey, were you coming up here too to hold my hand, or what's happening? I'm coming. Okay. You know, I met Tim Katona probably in 1980, you know, before the Civil War. And we got to be good friends, and as a matter of fact, we shared a lot of the same things together over the years. Back when we first got on the board, they had some meetings in Chicago, and neither one of us could afford a hotel room, so we shared it with 2 other guys. We couldn't really afford to eat at the hotel that was at the airport there because it was a little bit more expensive than we were accustomed to, and I think we had a hamburger or 2 that we split. And John Snowden was probably one of the only ones who could afford beer, so we drank half of his six-pack. I had a lot of remarks, or some remarks, that I was going to make regarding Tim this evening, and then he took the time to introduce me to his mother and father and stepfather before I sat down, so I decided that, well, you know, these remarks aren't going to quite work.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah.
You know, he said, his mom told me that, you know, if she'd have known what he was doing back in the day when he was doing it, should have killed him. I said, well, ma'am, I said, he tried to kill himself on a couple of occasions, but I don't think we had to mention that. But that being said, you know, back when Tim and I got to know each other and got involved, NRHA was a little bit different. And Tim was one of the people that had the foresight to see where NRHA could go. And if I were to refer to Tim as somebody that is the salt of the earth, I say that with the utmost respect, because Tim is the guy that at the show that if you ever need anything, or anything ever breaks, or if he's got anything in his tack room that you might need, just ask him, because he'll just give you anything that he can possibly have to aid you in your time of need. And he's just been one of those kind of people ever since the early 1980s. And where I'm going with this is we're on the you know, new board members, and we used to have siren dam boards at the fraternity. Remember what those looked like, Joe Wolf and Mike Hancock? Yeah, big boards and that. Well, we were in Oklahoma City for the first fraternity in 1986, And they volunteered Tim and I, who were the newest board members and whatever, to make these siren dam boards. And I went over the next morning, and Tim was there before Tim was he'd always outworked me. But he was there getting the tools and wood and everything ready, and we got there and I said, what are we gonna do with this? And we're figuring out how we're gonna put these boards together. And Butch Gardell, who happened to be president at the time, remember Butch Gardell? Anybody know Butch? He was president too. Yeah. Anyhow, he walked over and he said, hey, what are you two guys stumbling around doing that for? I said, well, nobody else is going to. We said, well, why don't you get Jack Warren? He at least knows what he's doing because he's a carpenter. And what took Tim and I 2 hours to make an attempt to build, Jack came over and had built in about an hour and a half, and it looked really good. And Tim also taught me a lot about fundraising, because back in the day we used to have to sell, what did we sell, Tim? Reverse raffle tickets or whatever? But Tim was one of the first guys there to sell these tickets, and we had to raise enough money to pay for the fraternity winner or the convention the following year, or what was it, Tim? But when it was a little bit more primitive back in the day, and right there in the middle of everything was my friend Tim Katona. And it sounds like all we did was probably screw around and not get really much accomplished. But if it wasn't for Tim Katona, the first official judges program seminar would never have taken place, because he hosted it at his farm in Michigan. If it wasn't for Tim Katona, the young people here tomorrow night to receive the youth awards would not have had as early an opportunity to participate in NRHA, because Tim Katona was the first chair of the youth committee. And if you want to think about what Tim Katona really means to the organization, you've got to go back. And when I say salt of the earth, there's a guy that's been involved when he was probably preteen 35 years ago, and he's still involved, still an integral part of the Michigan Reining Horse Association, and more importantly to that, an integral part of the NRHA, because without people like my old friend Tim Katona, we would not be where we are today. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present to you the Dale Wilkinson Award winner for 2016-17, my good friend Tim Katona.
We want to tell you that the Lifetime Achievement Award is being presented by Reining Horse Foundation and NRHA board member Dave Belson. Thank you so much for being here. Taylor's bringing out the award, which is will be a signed limited edition print of Dale Wilkinson, for whom this honor is named. Congratulations. Someone's going to have to hold this award, so Tim can come in.
Thank you. Humbling experience, to say the least. The phone calls, the texts, the emails that I got, the people just simply coming over and congratulating me, I was so appreciative of that. Frank told that first fraternity in Oklahoma City, we all had things to do. We didn't know, it was the first time we moved it there, we didn't even know where we were going to get the copying paper. We couldn't even ask Tim or Colin McCoy, they still lived in Minnesota. But one of the last things that I had to do at that fraternity was on Saturday night, after we knew who the fraternity winner was going to be, was to simply cue the music for the first time singing of the Run for the Roses song. It sounded really simple. I should digress. We got to remember Linda Brewer was the show manager at that time. And anyone that knew Linda or ever worked for Linda knows that she ran a tight ship. I mean, it was Linda's way or the highway. So we all were doing things to make Linda happy. But To make a long story short, we went through the practice on Friday before the Saturday night, and it was told me that the lights would dim, the spotlight would come to the end gate, the winner of the fraternity would ride through, I would cue the music, the lady would sing. Sounds simple. Come Saturday night, I'm up in the announcer stand sitting next to Keith Bradley, our old announcer, and the lights dim, the spotlight goes to the end gate, I push play, nothing happens. I mean, the lady looks at me, what are you going to do? Keith is bumping me, turn it on, I'm looking, I mean, the green light's on, the tape is spinning, I think volume, the volume comes up, she goes to singing, and Bob Loomis comes running through in the spotlight on Sophie's Oak, I think, and everything went fine. If I'd have messed that up, and Linda would have caught wind that I was up for this award, she'd have probably wrote a letter saying, that knucklehead, you've got to be kidding me, I wouldn't give him anything. Worked out great. Now for my thank yous. My wife Cindy, sitting down there with us. I wish she would have come up here. She's a little shy, but maybe that's why I fell in love with her all those years ago, and we're still married today. My dad John is here. He put me on my first horse when I was 5. My mom Charlotte, she wished I would have grown up to wear a suit with clean hands and work in office. That didn't happen. My stepdad Cornell, my sister Pam, my brother-in-law Mike, my nephew Matthew, his wife Victoria, who's pregnant with twins. I've got a whole table over here of customers wanting to be here. It's been long. We've had a great time in Fort Worth. To the youth reigners, you just don't know how proud I am of you. All those years ago, it was my intentions, always my intentions, for you to run your own organization the way you saw fit. Now it's the NRHA, National Reining Horse Youth Association. You have your own board of directors. These young people came up and spoke today. And I watch you constantly. Every time I get my reiner, I go to the back and I read your president's message. I'm so proud of what you've taken your event. I always watch you when you have your youth team tournaments at the affiliates, sometimes from the back of the crowd, sometimes from up in the stands, sometimes at the rail if I have somebody in it. I always watch you with pride. It was always my intention for you to go there. I have to thank the NRHA for giving me an avenue, my wife and I an avenue, to make a living all these years, for your foresight in developing the affiliate program, all those non-pro programs for us to be able to go home and ride reining horses, what we want to do, help people, show reining horses at whatever level. So in the end, for everybody that's rode a reining horse in whatever capacity, for everybody in this room, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, good. Good.